pretty much learned entrepreneurship from my moms.
That on your own, you can't really do it. You need the support of those around you.
You will have a network of people, a network of communities and a society that will make sure that you count.
Good evening and welcome to another fantastic special edition on a Tuesday evening of Saita Straight Talk. In Saita Straight Talk every week, we represent the informal sector and we speak about all the topics that are of importance to every trader, every small-based home enterprise that falls within the informal sector. This is a topic that we have over the last 3 weeks covered, but there is still so much more to cover that we once again going to be visiting the TREP, or the Township and Rural Economic Program. I want to tonight say thank you to each of the panelists that have made themselves available, and I'm going to give them a quick opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with our president of Saita, Rashida Muller. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Louise, and to all the viewers out there. I'm so glad that you've all joined us on Straight Talk tonight. It's going to be an exciting one.
Thank you, Rashida. Then we have from the Department of Small Business Development, we have Stephen Umlau. Stephen, good evening, and again, a very, very warm welcome to Saita Straight Talk.
Good evening, Louise, and good evening, President Rashida Muller, and good evening to the other panelists. Good evening to the viewers and listeners. Thank you for having me on the show once more. Thank you.
Our third panelist this evening is the head of the Economic Development Forum of Saita, in the name of Mr. David Fenter. David, it's your first time on Saita Straight Talk. A warm, warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Louise. Good evening to you. Good evening to our president. Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to all the listeners and the viewers.
So the Township and Rural Economic Program has caused quite a lot of conversation within the informal trading sector. But tonight, before we go into that, I'm going to give the mic over to Rashida Muller. Rashida, I want you to please tell the world again, who is Saita? What is Saita all about, and what makes this engine tick?
Thank you, Comrade Louise. Yes, Saita, my heartbeat. Saita is a South African Informal Traders Alliance. It is a national movement, a national organization that has 9 provincial structures across the country. It is the voice of the informal sector. It's Saita's purpose. The basic purpose of Saita is to unite the informal sector, to be able to speak with one voice, especially when we address national government. That's why tonight we do thank Comrade Stephen Umlau from the Department of Small Business, who is the national government, that is with us tonight. Saita has traveled a long road, and we are here now at the national platform, engaging with all departments of government, national, provincial, and local, and in particular local, because, you know, as Saita informal traders, a majority of them are impacted upon by municipalities. And tonight we're going to talk about such things. But I don't want to waste any more time on this exciting journey tonight.
Thank you, Rashida. David, your title, Saita EDF, Economic Development Forum. This is something that is definitely new to the sector. I need you to take us on this journey and tell us, what is the role of an economic development forum within a movement like Saita?
Thank you, Louise. I think just before I tell you about the EDF and where we're heading, it's important to understand where we come from. Then the story would make sense. So Saita was formed in 2013. But even if I take it slightly before that, the process in forming Saita started in 2002 and was started by Street and International, who collaborated with COSATU. And over a 11-year period, 11 years later, Saita was eventually formed. So it's important to understand that the formation of the structure is not something that happened overnight. It was something that where two bodies came together and realized we needed a voice to protect vulnerable workers in South Africa within the informal sector. Since 2013, the focus of Saita was to protect the rights of informal traders and to be that voice. And that is where Saita focused. The threat of the fourth industrial revolution was identified, and the organization strategically aligned itself to start preparing the informal sector to use technology. But prior to COVID, we all thought that the fourth industrial revolution is still in the far distant future. And then COVID happened suddenly. And we were thrown as a country, but just within our sector particularly, we were thrown in an absolute disarray. All of a sudden, everybody had to shut down. Businesses, trade had to shut down, and here we found ourselves more vulnerable than ever. Within that time, Saita was the voice, and we started calling for assistance as many other sectors have done, and large amounts of money was made available during the time of COVID to assist businesses, and not just businesses, but workers as well, who were affected by this lockdown. I won't say none, but a small percentage of that funds, a very small percentage of that funds reached a minute percent of the informal traders. And the biggest problem which we found was access to that funding, a term which we use, term red tape. But looking at accessing those funds, there were compliance documents, and these informal businesses had to almost be formal to access this relief funds. And many of our traders were left stranded. As a matter of fact, I think we are the hardest hit sector by COVID, as we are yet to receive relief funding. Now, in October of 2020, the National Executive Committee of Saita got together and discussed what is the way forward. Because all of a sudden, we were so reliant on government and support, and we had to find another means by which, as a sector and as an organization, we could meander through this territory, this unknown where we're finding ourselves.
Yeah.
And in October 2020, in the Western Cape, at our National Executive Committee meeting, at our Congress, the NEC adopted a strategy, and that was to form a structure within Saita, which would look at the economic development of our sector, not just the social protection of our traders. And what we would look at was to use our buying power, understanding that we are close on to 3 million informal traders, businesses. We're not even talking about the employees within our sector, and not to mention, let's not forget, the communities which we operate in as well. So as a sector, both our buying power, but also our selling power, puts us in a very strong negotiation or within a strategic position so as to attract investment or economic opportunities for our members. And it was in October 2020 when the NEC adopted to form the Economic Development Forum of Saita. And that would be the function of this forum, to engage with formal sector, to engage with government, and to act as that bridge, or as we like to term it, bridging the gap between the formal and the informal, and to make trade possible between these two sectors. Something which has never before been done. So I was elected as the chairperson of the Economic Development Forum, and in February of 2021, we officially launched. And we then started on our journey of engaging private sector, and government in terms of seeing how we could work together as the informal sector and the formal sector for the benefit of our traders, to see how we could increase the profit within their businesses and ultimately create jobs by creating more opportunities of trade, but also growing the businesses so that we could employ people in those businesses. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, David. Based on what you've just said, Economic Development Forum is such a huge term because we know the economy is huge. How does the EDF within itself dissect itself to serve different parts of the economy? How is that put together?
The EDF is very strategically put together. And what we are looking at is we are looking at where support structures currently are failing our members. I'll make an example, something very, very simple. We have launched, well, I won't say simple, it's actually quite complex, but we have managed to do it and do it very successfully. We've launched the very first, for the informal sector, Business Person of the Year in 2021, where we acknowledge and we celebrate the informal trader who, within as a business person, has to undergo and trade within very, very difficult trading conditions. And if you look at, I mean, we're just using this as an example, but if you look at the mother that has to take a taxi at 3 o'clock in the morning to set up a stall, to be ready at 4 or 4:30 to start trading, and then trades in adverse weather conditions, and then has to leave at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and go back home just to start that cycle again the very next day, working sometimes 7 days a week. How can we not celebrate these business people? So we've got awards where we celebrate our traders. This very platform which we're talking about, Saita Straight Talk, we've created a platform where we've now got a voice. As an informal sector, we finally got our own voice, where we can talk about our issues and not just be invited to talk about certain topics, but raise issues which we want to talk about on a national, but also an international platform. We've got various things from training, we've got benefits, we've got accounting and tax, where we assist our members with compliance documents, and we use our collective buying power to negotiate the best possible prices to assist our members. But there are so many other facets, everything from assisting to access finance and business incubation, mentorship. There's all these services which we offer within Saita, again, with one objective, and that is to grow our informal trader, increase their profit so that we can employ more people. And this is really our objective. We've got a team of experts within these fields, and we are very, very well equipped to engage on all fronts, be it both government or be it within the formal as well as the informal sector.
Thank you, David. Stephen, it's your turn. I want you. I know we've spoken about TREP, but I want you to quickly do a TREP 101 for us, and tell us what was the thinking behind the Township and Rural Economic Program.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you again for having me here. I wish I could listen to more of what President Rashida and David was saying, because it puts it so beautifully into context. There is a long history to the informal economy and the informal sector even broader. But it has been neglected for a very long time, until only in 2012 did we, for the very first time, have a strategy in government that focuses on the support and upliftment of the informal sector, the informal economy, and specifically informal businesses. And we identified several sectors within the informal economy, especially the sector that had to do with the largest number of participants, which was trade. So there are much more traders in the informal sector, in the informal economy, than, for instance, agricultural processing plants and textiles and so forth, but these also exist. So the strategy factored the key sectors that needed support. But then as time went on, there were a few programs that were tested and experimented with until finally government felt it was time to really boost more significantly the informal economy by developing something called the Township and Rural Entrepreneurship Fund. Now that was around February 2020. Just before the fund could be rolled out and implemented, then we had the COVID situation and the national state of disaster was declared. And so there had to be a quick adaptation of what would have been a fund that would have operated for the informal economy and other sectors in the economy. The fund was quickly fast-tracked to develop programs that would be responsive and that would enable the informal economy and other businesses to operate. The support was categorized in the form of schemes, support schemes. And these covered areas such as puzzle shops, fruit and vegetable traders, bakeries and confectionaries, clothing and textiles, cooked food, or what we generally know as chisanyamas, automotives and spares. And the rolling out of these programs was based on collaboration with municipalities, because the requirements to distinguish between those that would qualify and be eligible and those that would not, remembering that this is state funding, so there had to be some kind of legitimization of those businesses. And the only two requirements at the point for the informal traders in particular was an ID and a municipal permit or municipal kind of certification. But that proved to be quite a bit of a hindrance, because most of the traders were not in a position to produce a valid certificate or valid license because of the lockdown, because of some of the inefficiencies in the system for the issuing of these licenses. Some were said to be costly, and many other reasons were cited. It is for that reason that after the time that the scheme was implemented, it was being worked on at the same time to remove this requirement for the period that would enable access to the funds. And this is what led to a directive by the minister, a waiver of the requirements, that if there's a permit that has expired, it should be used. If there was a permit that needed to be issued, the fee and the cost for that would be put aside and waived, and the issuing of temporary permits could be facilitated and fast-tracked at local municipal level. Now, there hasn't been enough communication between all the players to say, yes, there is such a waiver, yes, there is such a directive. It is for that reason, among others, that the department is quite fortunate that we have this long relationship with Saita and other organizations that support and work with the informal businesses, that we could work together jointly and start spreading the message. Even a forum such as tonight is quite an ideal forum to say, yes, indeed, there is such a directive. You don't have to go and pay for a permit to trade. However, there will be interaction with the municipalities, and we are engaging the municipalities to say, how best do you accommodate the traders in the spaces in which they trade? So that is really the long and short of where TREP comes from. There are, of course, certain offerings that come out of the program, both financial and non-financial support that is given through the program. But then we realized that it was a bit more difficult to work directly with the traders. And so the approach now is to work through associations such as Saita. And there are other associations that we have identified, but Saita being a national organization, and because we've had this ongoing relationship with Saita, and because of its spread and the way it is structured, it makes it much, much easier for us to say, let us share the information through this organization. The approach is that Saita will then start getting those, let's say, applications for support on behalf of the informal traders, package those, do the verification that these are indeed bona fide traders that are in the knowledge of Saita, and submit those for the support that is required. Now, there's a process that has been developed to facilitate that and make it much, much easier. I think I should stop at this point because then I need you to get the perspective that you.
No, I appreciate the fact that you have painted the picture. I have another question for you, Stephen. But before I'm going to ask you that question, I just want to welcome on board Thusi Jackal, who is the Saita National Organizer. Comrade Thusi, welcome to Saita Straight Talk. It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you on board this evening. And I just want you to greet all our viewers and all our listeners before I ask Stephen the next question. There we go.
Oh, thank you so much, Louis. Evening to you, Braids, and evening to you, Steve. Yes, indeed, we are happy to have you, and we very much appreciate it, as Comrade Louis just said, that you are painting the picture. I don't know if I may proceed.
Please go ahead. I think Comrade Thusi has just hit. Comrade Thusi, you can go ahead, please.
Hello.
All right, Comrade Thusi. Wow.
Thank you.
There you are.
Yes. We are glad that you really confirm it, as we have received. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I was saying we are glad.
Comrade Thusi. Comrade Thusi. Respectfully, your signal is not too good, and we're struggling to hear you.
As well as Government Gazette on the issue of trading permits continuing to make people pay. Some of them don't even know about the directives. Whereas, why I'm saying this, yes, Comrade.
I'm just saying, Comrade Thusi, there's such a delay in your signal that and I'm so interested to hear what you are saying, but at the moment I cannot hear you. So while we try and sort out your signal, I'm going to go back to Stephen, because I said that there was a question that I wanted to ask him. Stephen, just to go back to how beautifully you've set the scene with regards to where the Department of Small Business and Development and Government has gone, and how they've taken the hand and looking to partner with organizations like Saita. How does it make you feel when David talks about the Economic Development Forum and the way forward for informal traders?
Thank you again, Louise. You see, now comes the whole idea of meaningful collaboration and joint engagement for the benefit of the informal traders. Because if we are able to chart out specific areas of collaboration, I have mentioned one already, which is the area of information sharing, information dissemination. But there are other areas. But in the area of development, business development, it makes it very appropriate that we also have an institution, part of the portfolio of small business development, which is the Small Enterprise Development Agency. We also have the Small Enterprise Finance Agency. Because we're working now closer as a portfolio, we are able to outline areas of output where in the area of business development services, in other words, non-financial support, then there could be meaningful interaction around how best to package those kinds of programs so that they have more meaning. Remember now, when you say nothing about us without us, it means we can't now sit alone and design a program that will help informal businesses. We would have to work with an organization such as yourself to say, what are the actual needs? How best can we structure this? If it's a training program, if it's a program that teaches people how to access certain services, if it is programs that help with the registration of businesses, at least now there is this collaboration, there's this partnership. And it opens up the door to more areas where we can identify jointly, or some can be coming through the organization as articulated by the members of the organization based on what they experience on a day-to-day basis. Remember, this is all driving towards a much bigger picture of not so much transforming an economy, but making an economy more inclusive. So that if we talk about the South African economy, we don't look up to high-rise buildings and say, there's the South African economy. We look at it holistically. We look at the person you described earlier, David, saying they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning at 4. They're all part of this whole South African economy. And that's what we're driving towards, so that whatever is being planned in terms of strengthening this economy is done with the consideration given to those that have been neglected previously. And then we work together towards achieving some of those objectives. And that is the beauty of that kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
Thanks, Louise.
Yeah, yes, Stephen, you've mentioned two critical points, and that is the one about inclusion, because and transformation. But inclusion ultimately will bring the transformation of the economy, and they are not mutually exclusive. So I'm going to go back to you, Stephen, because practically, I want to talk about the process. What does that mean? Because we can talk about the strategy and we can talk about the intentions, and you know, I'd like to say that when people sit up in boardrooms, then we have ideas of how that works. But if I'm an informal trader and I need to apply, what does that mean? Do I need to go through the normal vetting process as I would if I wanted to have a business bank loan? Then I've also seen the financial partner that's on board, who is Nedbank. Does that mean I have to have a Nedbank account? Does that mean I have to open up a Nedbank account? Just give us a little bit more input. with regards to that mechanic? Because practically those are the things that our traders have to deal with.
Thanks, Louise. It's such a well thought through system that is evolving and improving as we discover some of its shortcomings. So as we speak today, it has come to the point where, yes, we now are quite pleased that what has previously been termed the unbanked, and in some instances the unbankable, can now be mainstreamed into normal operations within the banking infrastructure, the banking system. What that means is really that the process itself, I've already mentioned that the Saita and other organizations with members can now collect applications, and there's standard application forms that are easy to complete, which basically tell us who you are, where you live, what you do, where you trade, and so forth. And it also assists us in capturing that information for future use. But in the process of applying, we then would take those applications as Saita to the bank. In this case, it is Nedbank. Nedbank will receive this batch of applications and process them so that into each application is given a figure, an amount of finance, and also a bank card that is already loaded with that, with those funds, to enable the trader to go and operate in the market place, whether to purchase from a supplier or a wholesaler. But there's another process parallel to that, which is saying, what about the wholesalers themselves? Who are they? Do they need support? Can they also not be put into a process that can be supported by government? So that once the trader has got the funds that are issued through the bank, and we take the information, we now know who is trading and that they are now operational with funds. The next step is to expose them to further assistance. That is where, for instance, the partnership that we were describing with the units that David is heading, that will say, what additional support can we jointly develop so that we uplift even further? Because money is not the end of a growth path. It takes more than just the funding, although the funds are critical, so that the person remains trading while at the same time they are being helped to grow in terms of other needs that they may have as an operating concern, as a business. That is really the broad scope of what we are doing with this program. Remember, we don't want to have informal businesses that have the potential to grow even faster and access opportunities beyond where they have been. Maybe that would start reducing the exposure that people have to be up early at 3 in the morning because they have to set up their equipment. Maybe this is a pathway to getting better equipment that doesn't take so long to set up. Then we would link them to the relevant programs with that kind of support.
I like what you're saying about sustainability, because that means that it's well thought through and that there's foresight. But while you were speaking, David had his hand up. David, question or comment?
Thank you, Louise. I want to make a comment. And, so many times we're easy to say or talk about things that we feel are not right. But very few times we actually say, well done, or thank you for the efforts of what has been done or what is being done. And then to come to the table and say, how can we do this better together? So I want to take the opportunity, and I actually want to thank the Department of Small Business Development and all its constituencies for the work that it has been doing within this informal sector. When one looks at the slogan, "Nothing about us without us," one must also take into account that the informal sector is a very diverse sector that's broken up into a lot of small pieces. And as Stephen has correctly mentioned, it's very difficult to work with all of these different moving parts. And therefore, it's important to work with an organization that represents the sector and makes it much easier to expedite and roll out programs. But not just rolling out of programs, but then also to engage and collectively design this program. So I want to say, just before I put forward my comments, I want to just commend everybody for the great work that has been done. But when one looks at the structure and TREP, one identifies the objective, and that is to assist. So there's a joint objective. But myself, having been an informal trader whose father started working from home and have gone through the process of having no money, struggling through life, and then going as this business went through different stages of growth to now it finds itself as a medium enterprise, I understand that. So when one looks at the fact that you have to have a registered business, a very small thing, it's a very small thing, but I just want to make mention. When you say you have to have a registered business, and understand there are different types of business formation, sole proprietor partnerships, B2I limiteds, we can go on. But let's talk about those three. One of the requirements is that you have to have your subsidy docs, and you must be a P2I limited. Now let's understand, when you're a P2I limited, you're talking audited financials. And audited financials cost money, which means you're now going to have an accountant. And if you look at the average income of an informal trader, that Stats SA has set at 6,500 Rand a month. And that was before COVID. And let's understand, COVID has reduced foot traffic to the markets due to lockdown. Let's also understand, due to the high unemployment, the number of traders competing for their customer has increased, meaning that the average income has dropped. But yet, if one looks at the cost of an accountant, which manages a P2I limited, that cost could range anything from 750 to 1,500 Rand a month, depending. So that already takes away close up to 10% of that business's income. So just there, one has got to look at, how do we access? Now, when one looks at the sole proprietor, which we are already trading as within our, with our ID numbers, just to maybe to say, okay, I need a tax certificate, I need a tax clearance, registering us for an income tax number, which takes about 20 minutes. There we go. We've got a compliant business trading as a sole proprietor that can now deliver tax clearance certificate, but we've just reduced the cost. So there are certain things where we really look forward to engaging with the Department of Small Business Development as the sector, where we feel we can add a lot of value so that we can reach the joint objective. And again, I want to just say thank you, for this platform, and thank you to the Department of Small Business for being available and sharing this information with us. But even things such as banking, to change your bank account is not something easy. If you're going to ask me now to change my business bank account to another bank, it's difficult. I mean, I understand this platform. Now I've got to go to a new platform. I've got to learn it. The branch might not be close to me. I've got a bank that is much closer to me. And these are all things one has to look at, because our strategies must not exclude anyone. It must include everybody. So there's little things which we need to discuss and engage upon to see how we could make TREP, which really has a very good objective, but to see how we could get together and just make that a little bit better, so we could include more people into the process. But thank you.
Thank you for that input, David. And I just want to latch onto it, because when you go onto the TREP website, the wording is that it's a one-stop shop business support, which means that I should be able to come with whatever I have, and I should be supported. So just to latch on to what you've just said, because that was my niggling question, is if I have a banking account and now you say to me that I now need to move this all to your bank of choice, then it becomes work. And life is hard as it is. I don't want to actually add any more work to my life. So I know you're taking notes, Stephen. I can't see you, but I know that is something that you're definitely going to be looking at. Comrade Tusi, I'm not sure. I can see you, but I'm not sure if the signal is better, because I'd really like some input with you, because we're almost running out of time. No. No, Comrade Tusi, I'm really sorry, but your signal is definitely letting you down right now. I'm wanting to call in our president, because there's been a lot of things that has been happening. We've got the TREP, we've got our challenges. There are people. I mean, you've just told me that one of the panelists last week that we had on the TREP program, he was very vocal. He said he had received a phone call to say that his application was successful. But he wasn't buying into that phone call, because he wanted something on paper. He wanted something to say to him, listen, you've got the money. And just before we went live, you actually said to me that you had some news on that. So I want you to start with that good news. And then I want you to add on some more good news, because we were in a meeting with the new minister of the Department of Small Business Development yesterday. And out of that conversation came an invitation. So I really want you to just tell us about it, because I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, indeed. So the first question is, I was asking the young man whether he has received any updates for the last week. And then he sent me a note that he received from the department asking him for his bank account number, because that probably means that the money is coming. He was concerned that he already gave the bank account number, but anyway, he gave it again. So that's a good thing. But before I speak about our meeting we've had yesterday, I want to welcome Cheryl Phillips, because Cheryl is, if I'm not mistaken, she is a LED manager in Drakenstein. And she has posed a question on the comments. How do you create a sustainable mechanism to monitor the implementation of department's intervention over a long period of time? Sometimes we are not consistent. And I think to that, my answer would be the partnership between the department and a movement like Saita. Remember, we have members who apply, and it's important for us to monitor the development and also support the growth of that business, because we, like our comrade David said earlier, if we develop and grow our businesses, it's going to lead to employment, which means job creation. And I think that is very important. So Cheryl, yes, we need to have a very strong relationship between the department and a movement like Saita, so that there is a monitoring and evaluating of the support, the financial and the non-financial support that the department gives us. So yes, the exciting news, and we are about to close our meeting, our straight talk tonight, was that we were invited as Saita for a meet and greet with the new minister of the Department of Small Business Development, Minister Stella Ntribini Abrahams. And what a wonderful invitation that was. In that meeting yesterday, it was Saita and its executive team and the department and their executive team. So I want to thank, like David did earlier, that I think over the years, and I think it's more than 7 years now, Comrade Stephen, that we've been working with Comrade Vukeli Nakabeni, when we have worked with quite a number of your officials, and that we are now holding hands, and that we hope that our partnership will be formalized. The minister made it clear that it's no use that they as a department talk about strategies and plans for the informal economy workers, and the informal sector is not around that table. So we are waiting for that strategic planning, which is on, I think, that's Thursday and Friday, that Saita will be part, sitting in, well, of course, virtually, which is so great to do, like we're doing right now tonight, that we will be sitting as the Saita organization with the department in unrolling and unpacking what we believe the informal economy needs for greater growth and development, which should lead to nothing else but greater employment. So on that note, I want to thank everyone that's been passing comments, and I'm so happy that this is taking momentum and speed on what we're doing. I think it's just so great, Louise, that we have you as media officer in our EDF, and we are really moving. Comrade Stephen, to you, thank you for availing yourself to us. And the road is long and it is rocky, but let's do it together for the success of the economy of this country. I thank you, Louise, and everyone on the platform.
There aren't better words to close a program of this nature off, and I'm not even going to attempt that. Stephen Amlau from the Department of Small Business Development, thank you once again for availing yourself and answering our questions so patiently and just sketching the picture and helping us understand where we are going. David Venter, as the head of the Saita EDF, thank you for making yourself available in your busy schedule and just setting the platform. I think it is up to you. Have you asked your local organization whether they have made contact with Saita? It is in your hands. We need to create one sector, one voice. If you have anything that you are thinking is a burning issue that you want Saita Straight Talk to talk about, please leave a message in the comment. We would love to hear from you. But until Thursday night at 7 o'clock, right here on the Saita media page, from me, Louise, goodbye.